get a photograph done.
Okay.
Are you going into the meeting?
Love it.
Get the 5 in.
Oh yes. No, I get that.
I'm going to drum up some business.
TDC, we need our trees, we want a decent strategy.
TDC, we need our trees, we want a decent strategy.
Following the recent review, the additional processes for works on trees and hedgerows will be imminently adopted by the Open Space team. This includes an ecological risk assessment to be carried out for a variety of parks and open space works. This improved process will include the use of new technology to include a thermal imaging wildlife camera recently purchased and currently being trialled. This will be used alongside the traditional methods of ecological monitoring as part of the prescribed process that must be followed before works are carried out. Check sheets will be included as part of the ecological risk assessment to ensure compliance is documented. Recommendations are also being sought from the RSPB, Wildlife Trust and other local authorities to help develop this. I can also confirm that Thanet District Council will be recruiting arborists for the district.
Thank you very much, Councillor Ashby.
Now I must admit that is a mighty fine looking drum as well.
It's real horse skin and horse bone,
Right.
and I think horse sinew as well, but I'm not sure about that.
Horse sinew. Lovely. They're Japanese drums.
Councillor Bayford. Given the growing public interest and concern with regard to our natural environment, will the Council commit to preparing an environment and biodiversity strategy and associated policies for Thanet, publish a timeline for completion, and include consultation with local experts and other interested parties in the work programme?
Thank you very much, Captain Mr. Wise. I call upon the leader to respond. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Wise, for your question. It's important that we move towards a sustainable future where Thanet is resilient to environmental change. We must also address the risks, impacts and opportunities arising from that change. Later this evening, I'm anticipating the Council will agree to a number of actions in connection with declaring a climate emergency. Yes. And I'm sure that the creation of an environment and biodiversity strategy can be considered by Cabinet along with any other proposals being recommended. Yes. It should be noted that there is currently a Kent biodiversity strategy in place being overseen by the Kent Nature Partnership, as well as KCC's own Kent Environment Strategy. It would obviously make sense to see how these documents and the activities associated with them might inform our own strategy. This will also avoid any duplication of effort. Thank you.
According to the IPCC, we are less than 12 years away from catastrophic climate change. In this time, we as a planet must achieve a reduction of our CO2 emissions by 50%, where a tipping point is reached and human intervention to prevent unstoppable global warming becomes much, much more difficult. Nearly every single major national scientific body around the world unreservedly supports the works and findings of the IPCC, so I hope that science tonight is not up for debate. It is with this in mind that we propose to declare a climate emergency in the hope that we, as Thanet District Council, can play our part and aim to be carbon neutral by 2030. So what can be done locally? When it comes to buildings, we can ask for new builds to be zero carbon. We can support the vulnerable by ensuring that properties are insulated as part of legal ECO obligations. We can assess energy efficiency measures and planning applications. When it comes to waste, we can increase the number of flats to recycle, as there are currently 16,000 flats with no recycling bins at all in Thanet. We can add additional recycling bins or recycling points. When it comes to energy, we can offer a green electricity supplier for council property, and we can support applications for renewable energy schemes. When it comes to transport, we can promote greener refuse vehicles, promote no idling areas outside of schools, and work with KCC to improve the biking trail and cycle lanes, and also establish 20-mile-an-hour zones where necessary. When it comes to trees and green spaces, we can ensure that TDC tree officer and KCC work to plant more trees and wildflowers, encouraging a bee corridor, use safer neighbourhood grants to improve parks, and work with local groups to help compost any waste material left by the council. Yeah. And there are many other easy wins. The TDC pension, for example, pays into a pension fund. This sits on fossil fuel investments worth over £267 million. I am not a financial advisor, but I would hazard a guess that investing money in fossil fuel companies is not a great long-term investment. Divesting this money away from fossil fuels might be a win-win situation for pension holders as well as the planet. So what does this motion say? This motion asks the Council to pledge that it is within the Council powers to make TDC carbon neutral by 2030. We call on Westminster for support to reach its target and work with partners across the county and region to support this and investigate future funding opportunities. It is not possible to include within this motion any requirement for the Council to produce an action report within 6 months. But following on dialogue with the leader of the Council, we would appreciate if the leader could commit to producing an action report within 6 months and present this to Council. For those wondering about this motion, this is not a new motion. A climate emergency has already been declared in 5 councils in the South East and is in progress in 13 other councils in the South East. This movement is growing. One point from Labour and Green Party locally. We are aware that KCC has pushed back the timeline for a similar motion to 2050. So if there are any amendments that aim to weaken this, both Labour and Green parties, and we hope other parties here, will aim to vote against any amendment. an emergency becomes significantly less urgent when it's pushed back 20 years. Dear council members, council staff and members of the public, the time for talking on climate action is over and the time for action is now.
Councillor Yates, can I ask you to move on to the actual wording of your motion, please?
Sure.
And don't say if it lost the most important bit.
I was reaching a very good ending. So, the council resolves to declare a climate emergency, to pledge to do what is within our powers and resources to make Thanet District Council carbon neutral by 2030, taking into account both production and consumption emissions, call on Westminster to provide the powers and resources to make the 2030 target possible, continue to work with partners across the county and region to deliver this new goal through all relevant strategies, request the council investigate all possible sources of external funding and match funding to support this commitment. Thank you.
I call upon the leader, Councillor Favour, to respond. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. It's very simple. We've had conversations with both the councillors that are proposing and seconding this motion, and I believe it's very timely that this should be considered by the council now, and I believe we should debate it this evening, although I don't think it needs an awful lot of debate, because I think we are very, very sympathetic and empathetic to what you're proposing. Thank you.
Good.
As only council can adopt this motion, it will fall if not debated, and as we therefore are about to debate, we can take that forward. Can I have a show of hands for those in favour of and that seems unanimous.
Yes.
Thank you very much indeed. Can I ask who would like to lead the debate here? Councillor Garner.
Thank you, Chair. I'm pleased to be making my first contribution to a debate in the Chamber as one of 3 newly elected Green councillors, seconding this motion, calling on Thanet District Council to declare a climate emergency. This is undoubtedly the biggest issue facing the global community, and it is vital that we do all we can locally as well as put pressure on the government to act. We know that if we do nothing, Thanet is likely to feel the adverse effects of climate change early as sea levels rise. Millions of pounds have already been spent on coastal defences in Ramsgate and Margate, and if the sea level rises as predicted, then Thanet may well become an island again. I've worked with Councillor Yates over the last few weeks to prepare this motion, and I echo everything he's mentioned during this speech. These are all things it's important for us, the council, to do. But this isn't something that just the council can deliver. We will not succeed unless we engage with the wider community of Thanet. There are groups already out there leading the way in the fight against climate change and protecting our trees and green spaces, some of whom are here this evening, and we should be working with and learning from them. We also need to be working with other community and neighbourhood groups and with local businesses to provide the support and resources they will need to reduce their CO2 emissions. I urge all members to think about the future generations of Thanet and to support this motion.
Well said, Mark.
Councillor Campbell there. Are you in good form tonight, Councillor Campbell?
Well, you're about to find out, aren't you? Just to inform the council that last night Ramsgate Town Council actually proposed and adopted a stance of carbon neutral for our local authority at Ramsgate. Theresa May announced in June that the UK will be the first major economy to set a legally binding target to end climate emissions by 2050, which is far too long. However, in a report this week, the Climate Change Committee said that the targets already for 2025 and 2030 were likely to be missed by even bigger margins than last year. Targets themselves do not reduce emissions, but they do give us something to focus on. You can't improve anything by just measuring it. A government spokesman said, "We know there is more to do. We set out plans in the coming months to tackle emissions from aviation, heat, energy and transport, as well as further measures to protect the environment from extreme weather, including flooding protection and tree planting." All issues which we seem to have come across lately. So that's what we need to do in TDC, and I sincerely hope that all councillors will support this motion, which will show that we take the climate emergency seriously. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed for that, Councillor Roper. You are in good company. I see practically all councillors in this chamber with you. Councillor Constantine.
So I just wanted to say thank you very much, Chair, and thank you obviously to all the councillors that have spoken so well about this particular issue. And as Councillor Yates said, the science is not up for debate. We do not need to discuss the science of this. I have to say, as a Kent County Council, I was very disappointed with Kent County Council not setting a target for 2030, but setting a target for 2050. I want us to pass this motion as it is. I want us to set a harder target. We must take action, and we must have our eyes sighted on that action being in place by 2030. Stretching targets often work better, and this is perhaps the most important target we will ever set or ever debate in this chamber. When I heard this week that temperatures in Anchorage, Alaska, were soaring to 90 degrees, I mean, this is just crazy climate change. We don't really need anything else to remind us of the importance. So in terms of 2030, the City of Edinburgh set a target, Nottingham, Bristol, Durham and Manchester. I would like the Chamber to think about the potency and leverage of and the enthusiasm that would be released here by being a trailblazer in Kent. I would like the Council to think about the release of power, enthusiasm and cooperation of our community, again by being a trailblazer in Kent. I would really like us to lead the way. So let's please make Thanet green.
Is not lost by every member in this chamber, and perhaps here we can do better than Kent County Council. Councillor Stevens, I have a contribution from you.
Yes, very briefly, following on from what's been said by many people here, just to echo how much support there is for this in the community. Cliffsend Parish Council has invited a representative from Kent Wildlife Trust to talk to them last week, and they arranged a further meeting for later on this month, because they want to see this kind of initiatives go forward, see what they can do in the local community. So it is very widespread support for this. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor. We have a contribution from the Vice Chair of Council, Councillor Wright.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to say, not many of you know that I actually chair planning at Birchington Parish Council, and last year when I took the position, we actually have got a tree. Sorry, I have to stand up. Okay, one of the things that I did with my committee, we actually have had a tree policy in place for just over a year, whereby if anybody takes a tree away, they have to replace it. Right. Thank you.
No!
Right. Councillor Bayford.
Thank you, Chairman. What I would like to say is that we as a group debated this at some length, and again, we're unanimous in support of this. You know, obviously over time we'll see what the art of possible is, but you know, the will is there. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Bayford. Well, that's good. Councillor Yates, would you like to wind up, please?
Sure. So first of all, thank you for all the contributions here tonight. I think it's been really positive. And thank you to the leader of the council for both meeting with Councillor Garner and myself to discuss this in a very open manner. Given the unseasonably hot weather here tonight, I would recommend we go to the votes. But I would ask that this is a recorded vote, given the public passion on this.
Yes, please.
Thank you very much indeed, Councillor Yates. We can move to the vote now. I find it very unlikely that anyone is going to vote against. Perhaps it could be just as easily done if we turn around and ask those in favour of the motion, please, by a show of hands. Thank you very much indeed, Chairman, and thank you very much to everybody in the public gallery who shown support to the Chamber for this motion.